And I went into shock, and I just, elevated above the room at that point. And I watched the doctors down below working on me, and they were panicking. I was coded. And I remember, okay, I think I'm dead. I know I'm dead now. I started going through all those stages of death. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where's my baby? I remember that life. I remember what I left behind. I'm in this beautiful garden with plants and um, flowers, and gosh, it was just so beautiful. Things that are not in existence on our earthly realm. I saw, my perception was a man with long brown hair, and even though I have brown hair, but his eyes were like a glowing light brown light eye color. And when I did have a conversation with that guy in the garden, he did tell me, "You're creating your experience on earth as you do in heaven." And he was trying to tell me the opposite of what we hear as humans here on earth. And I just understood it to be that way because I was creating my reality there.
I'm here with Crystal Faith. She had an amazing near death experience. She went to heaven and she was clinically dead for 53 minutes.
I was actually pronounced 8 full minutes after a failed 45-minute attempt to revive me. But yes, it was back in 2000.
Can you tell us
Yeah.
your near death story?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's my favorite thing to talk about because it's just, there's so many things about it that is makes it so exciting. Okay, so in 2000, I actually was on bed rest for about 4 to 6 months. And I spent the majority of that in the hospital. Leading up to the day of the event, I was already there for 10 days. And everybody wanted me out of there. I wanted to leave. But the night before I was being discharged, I actually asked to stay one more night because I just had this really bad feeling something was going to happen. So that next morning, sure enough, I was in full blown labor. There's no stopping it. And late, it was about 9 o'clock at night, and they decided, that she's been in labor all day. Let's see if this baby's stressing. So it was during the process of putting a monitor on the baby's head that they actually must have nicked a vein, and they don't know exactly how and what causes an amniotic fluid embolism, but I now began to suffer from one. And it's kind of silent at first. You don't know what's happening. You just feel like you can't breathe. And I kept crying out loud. I'm like, I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe. So they rushed over and gave me an anesthesiologist to give me an epidural. And due to the way that they administer epidurals back in 2000, which is almost 25 years ago, was it at the time it was a one-time shot. And when they went to go put the shot in, it was a medication that if you would need a C-section, then you'd have an adverse reaction to this medication for the epidural. And that would make you feel your C-section or potentially create that problem. So as soon as they put the epidural in, the doctor came running in the room, and he was like, the baby's heartbeat's in the 50s, and we need to take her out right now. And the anesthesiologist and him had the same conversation I just explained. And the doctor just looked at me, and I was just a very, very young mom. And he's like, "So, do you want your baby dead or alive? Like, do you want to go in and have a C-section with the risk of feeling it, or do you want no baby at all because she's not going to make it?" So, of course, I'm going to say, okay, I'll go with the risk. And sure enough, I felt the whole C-section. And I mentioned that because I learned later in my experience that we create our own realities. And during the C-section, I was feeling the whole procedure, but I was paralyzed and I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. It was like a cotton ball. It was, I felt so dehydrated. Couldn't even open my mouth. So I was literally saying, let me die, let me die. This is too much pain. I was begging the universe to let me die. And sure enough, as soon as I heard my baby cry for the first time, I couldn't take it anymore. I actually thought it was a power drill or something. I had no idea. And I went into shock, and I just, elevated above the room at that point. And I watched the doctors down below working on me, and they were panicking. I was coded. And one of the physicians in the room is actually training other doctors on what to do in a C-section. It was a university hospital. So he's like, I think she's having amniotic fluid embolism. He was able to correctly diagnose me in the moment, which really saved my life. But I'm watching this from above the room, and I'm really just kind of focusing on the newborn baby in the room, like, oh, she's so cute. And I didn't quite understand what was going on. I just saw how adorable she was. And then the next thing I know, I'm back in my body because they revived me, and I was again in so much pain. They hadn't even formally cleaned me up or got me taken care of, and now they're rushing me up to the ICU. And I coded again. I saw their heads above the elevator because they have a specific elevator for the ICU. And we're going up, and I'm looking at the heads of these doctors, and they're all wearing this green cap for surgical purposes. But one was bald, and I was really kind of focused on this bald head, which later I realized was for his purpose and not mine. And then next thing I know, in the next scene, and I guess you kind of see scenes along the way, and you don't honestly know how to put them into order. So I'm doing my best after 25 years of looking back at all these events, which one happened before the next. So the next scene, I see my sister and my grandpa talking in the waiting room. And my sister actually worked at the hospital in the admissions department. She was the manager. And when a physician orders a test and they need to get it directly and quickly to the ordering physician, the people in the admissions department physically take this test result and they run it to the doctor and hand deliver it. And it just so happened to be my sister who was working that night hand delivering my results to the ordering physician. And I was observing her walking past the waiting room and sharing these results with my grandfather. And I don't know if there were more people there or not. I just could only see them. I was only focused on them. So I'm watching them from again above the room, and my sister's showing them my x-ray results. And she's like, don't tell anyone I'm telling you this. Sorry, sister, you're hearing this. But I called her out, like later I called her out and she panicked, sorry. But I was like, she was like, don't tell anyone about this, but I want to show you this. And she's like, look at her lungs. And he started panicking, and I could feel every single bit of his panic. And he was like, what is this dark space here on her lungs? And she's like, or maybe it's light space. Sorry, I'm not a doctor. And she was like, that's actually the good part of her lungs. This other part, which is 85% full of fluid, that's not good, you know. And it ended up being the case that my lungs were 85% full of fluid, and that test was done somewhere in those few moments. So the next scene, I'm actually looking above the doctors working on my body again in ICU. They were attempting to revive me for my second time. During this time period, 45 minutes would go by, and they would be doing everything they can to revive me. And then they gave up and gave me a death time. And then 8 more minutes passed before I eventually came back. But anyway, I'm watching them from above the room, and I could feel every single emotion that they're having. And I could feel their passion and their love and commitment to try and bring me back. And I couldn't understand why they were so worried. I kept asking, why are you so worried? I'm right here and I'm just fine. And that part of my experience feels so good and makes me feel so much better, because since then, of course, I've had friends and family who've passed away, and now I know not to worry, and they're perfectly fine. But I'm watching them, and I'm the only thing, oddly enough, that I could really focus on is this annoying sound. And somehow sound is really important to you in this presence when you're in this experience. And so I kind of like elevate down to this machine that clearly was the flatlining alarm. And I was just thinking, this is a really annoying sound. And I didn't know what it was. And I just kind of went back to the top of the room. And in this part of my experience, I recognized there was somebody else there with me. And I looked at her and we spoke telepathically and kind of with emotions. It's a hard way of explaining it unless you've had this yourself. But you're very, very open on a spiritual level with one another. And there's like no way you can lie to someone or hide something from them. It's just pure openness and like a portal or channel, I guess, to contact, to be in direct communication with them since then. So I'm asking her, like, who are you? I could tell you love me. And she literally said, she was so friendly. She's like, I'm the one who named you. And very specifically, which I'm going to insert here because I commonly forget what that means, right? So on the other side of the room, my mom was looking out the window, and I remember spending a lot of time focused on her. And I was like, why is she feeling this way? And she was kind of feeling, God, if you're going to take her, come take her. And just, here you go. And I surrender. I'm giving myself to you. And I was really confused. I'm like, why? That's my mom. Like, why is she not begging the universe to have me come back to life? And this lady with me, she's like, she's just surrendered and it's okay. Um, and then I was like, there's something wrong with her? She's like, no, she loves you just as much as I do. She's just in that human body doing the best that she can in this experience in life. And that's just a part of her inside there. So of course she can't be all loving and open like we are. And she proceeded to explain this concept again telepathically, and it comes in as a download. So it's like understood simultaneously. And I guess her reason for being there went more than and further beyond trying to provide me love and support in the moment and to aid me with what was going on and help me understand what was going on, because I was very, very confused, but I wasn't worried, if that makes sense. And when she said she was the one who named me, like later, 6 to 7 months later, I was at my mom's house spending the night for something, and she was doing genealogy. And on her computer screen, and when I came down and looked, and it was like I came down in the middle of the night and talked to her for a few moments, she was showing me this genealogy photo she had found. And on there was this lady above the room in a younger version of herself, but I could clearly see it was the same person. And she's sitting on this brick wall with a whole bunch of other girls her age, maybe in their early 20s, I don't know. And it was like a black and white photo. And I pointed straight to her and I'm like, I met her, I met her. But the problem is, AJ, I actually didn't have a voice after coming back to life. Um, I have a great voice now, it's as good as it gets. But I actually had vocal cord trauma and had to go to speech therapy for almost a year before I had any voice back at all. So I'm trying to tell her, I met her, I met her. But she wouldn't listen to me. So I grabbed one of the many notebooks I had laying around and wrote down, well, she said she was the one who named me. And I don't know what that means, but that's what she said. And I wrote this down and I'm holding it. And she proceeds to tell me, no, honey, you couldn't have met her because she died when I was 8.5 months pregnant with you. So you didn't meet her. And I said, but then I showed her my notebook and she just broke down, like sobbing, upset, crying. And she's like, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. And I'm sitting here confused and she's holding my notebook and I can't say, what can you not believe? I'm just waiting for her to get through the moment. And she gets herself together and she goes, actually, I went to go see her on her deathbed and I had just had an ultrasound. And back in 1982, when you were born, ultrasounds weren't that accurate with gender reveal. And I was told that I was going to have a boy. And this is my maternal grandmother. And she said, no, honey, you're going to have a girl. You're going to have a girl and you're going to name her Crystal Faith because she's going to have pure faith in this world. And my mom's like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to have a boy. I had an ultrasound. I know I am. And then sure enough, when I came out a girl and she had a boy's name picked out, she didn't know what to do. So she's like, I'm just going to use Crystal Faith because that was a good name anyway. And everybody gave her so much credit and was like, where did you come up with that name? It's so beautiful. And my mom always said, my mom said she took the credit for it every single time. But retrospectively, one of her one of the life lessons her grandmother wanted to give her entire life was don't take other people's credit. And that's why my mom broke down so much. So she was saying, like she had taken the credit of my name my whole life. And now I'm able to tell my mom the same message that she had been trying to tell my mom while she was alive the whole time. So it was like a really touching moment for her. And I think that's one reason why her essence came into this space and shared that message with me. But then, anyway, I'm above the room, looking at the doctors, looking at my mom with this lady, and she kind of somehow telepathically told me to turn around and go to the light, which is really interesting. A lot of our religions tell us that. So I turned around and it was already like a 360 view. I didn't feel like there was any limitation or ceiling to the room. And I was just in this extremely bright light. It's almost like I passed through light itself and I was on the other end of the spectrum where all light meets. So it was so bright. It was, oh, sorry. It was so beautiful. It was very bright white. You literally cannot, you feel like you're not adjusting your eyes to it, even though they're spiritual eyes. Um, you're just, it, it's all surrounding. You have no desire to turn around. I actually barely hear any accounts of near-death experiencers who actually turn around. You just want to keep moving forward and like uh, a physical lineage, you just want to move in a certain direction. But for a minute, a long minute actually, I was just sitting there and absorbing this light and energy and feeling so loved and at home. And then very specifically from my left and my right, I could hear the sound of like angels singing. And it's like they had musical instruments for voices. So when we see these old paintings that have been painted of angels and they have, a horn or some instrument, I know that's the reason I'm not the only one that had a near death experience and heard these angel sounds. So I'm just really enjoying this beautiful angelic sound and presence. And they were rejoicing for me, with me, rejoicing God and praising God with all of their energy. And the most beautiful thing about all of it is they never had to inhale. They were always exhaling. So like I get winded, I get excited, I lose my breath, and you ask me to sing, it's definitely going to happen. But they're just all energy and it's pouring one continuous flow. And it's many, many voices, not just one. It's just beautiful. So I'm sitting there absorbing this and being healed from everything that my short-lived life had given me, all the traumas it gave me. I was just simultaneously being healed and absorbing this energy. So, but after a while, I was like, okay, it's all white still. What do I do with this? And where should I go? So I had this strong feeling I should take a left. And I went left and I kind of traveled at the lightest speed. And it was just like there was no friction, nothing stopping me. And I was going at the speed of thought. And I'm having fun with it. I just remember being in so much joy and bliss. And it's like the light is also like you're becoming more and more with it. And as I'm traveling, after a long time, and again, there's time doesn't exist there, but in my earthly self, I would say it felt like millions of years. I thought, okay, we've been going a long ways, and I feel like it's time to create something here. So it's like, I want to create the most beautiful place. It should have a beautiful place. It's a beautiful white light. And instantly, I was just in this most beautiful garden. And that makes me think again of Bible, like biblical, the Garden of Eden. And I'm in this beautiful garden with plants and um, flowers and gosh, it was just so beautiful. Things that are not in existence on an earthly realm. I didn't recognize anything that I ever seen. And now that I love to travel and explore, I appreciate the glory of everything that's alive in front of us, but this garden is completely different. It's just way, way more lush. And I feel like it was a presence given me an experience here. I feel like I was not the one creating this experience by myself, because there's no way I could have imagined plants that were this beautiful. Um, so it's like I was being receiving of something at the same time I was giving my manifestation in this reality. So I felt like, so like the next thought I had was, they should have like beautiful creatures, like butterflies or dragonflies or something. And then there was these beautiful creatures flying everywhere, and they were, again, nothing I could have ever imagined or seen on the earth plane. And I get to almost like a T intersection on this path, and I felt like I can go left. I didn't even want to look left. I've heard a lot of near-death experiences over the years where people specifically go left and they get to this beautiful buildings and spaces with buildings, but I happen to take a right. And I felt like I went a long ways again, but I ended up in a courtyard, and there was a man sitting on a natural bench with his back facing me, not too far off to my right. So I went over next to him, and I don't know if I was like sitting in his lap or right next to him or what, because you feel like you have a body, but you're not being embodied. But I could see his body, and he was beautiful. Um, I don't know if everybody sees the same man here, but I saw, my perception was a man with long brown hair, and even though I have brown hair, but his eyes were like a glowing light brown light eye color. And he was just so beautiful and perfect. And he was wearing a white gown. A lot of people asked me, what was he wearing? And I feel like we were barefoot. I get asked a lot, was he wearing shoes, or tell me what he's wearing? Everyone wants to ask so many questions, but he was just a simple white outfit. And I don't recall seeing shoes or not on him. But just like I spoke to the lady above the room, I started speaking to him telepathically. And it's, again, like an instant download of information. And we began having a conversation. And it's really interesting, AJ, because when you have a question, it's almost like simultaneously understood in its fullest form. So I was asking him lots of questions, and then I would like get this download. It was like a zap of energy every time. And then I felt like I could ask another question because I was still inquisitive and wondering what, about something else. And then he would give me that answer. So it's not like I was all knowing instantly, but you are being received downloads. And somewhere, there's so many things I could say about those. I think you and I could create a whole video on that alone. But one of the things I love about this experience is he was trying to show me he had been with me my whole life, and I did a great job, and I was absolutely perfect, and he was so proud of me. And he proceeded to tell me that he was with me all along. And I mean, even though I was raised in a nice, healthy family, there was still a lot of times I felt alone, and I was very adventurous. So I'd go out in the woods and be by myself, or bring a book and read a book. And I felt alone a lot. And I was like, well, where were you when I felt, when there's no way you were always with me. And then he brought me, like, I don't know how to explain this. And then he showed me all these scenes of my life where really he was with me, and he's trying to communicate, I was with you here and here and here and here, but it wasn't him. It was I was only like 17, 18 at the time of my death. It was my 17, 18-year-old self playing with my younger self when I was a child, as like, and everyone in my family called that my imaginary friend. So the way that this worked was, in reality, when I was like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I always had imaginary friends, and I would call her a Cookie. And ironically, that's what I called my that's what my brother called me because he couldn't pronounce Crystal. He was 2 years younger than me. So he would call me Cookie. And then I had this imaginary friend named Cookie. So my family thought that was so funny and they always joked about it. And it like really stood out in all of their minds when I mentioned this to them later. But apparently, I don't know why and how, but my 17, 18-year-old self would go play with my younger self when I was alone in the room and scared or needing comfort. And I'm able to see this from like a 360 angle. I'm not in either person's body watching this as I'm going through all these different scenes. I'm like from the angle of a light switch on the wall or the light above the room or standing in the doorway kind of. And I'm seeing my higher self, my older, wiser self, giving my younger self comfort during these times. So I think it's really interesting. So a lot of moms and parents in general will ask me questions about my, their own child's imaginary friends. And I say, pay attention because that might be their higher self, inserted into those experiences with them. So anyway, I'm being shown that Jesus would, or this man, I'm going to call him Jesus, was with me all along because he was with me through how do you say this? Through the channel of love. I hope that makes sense. So Jesus is telling me, I am love and you are love. We are one. And you are as divinely and powerful as I am here in this space. And he proceeded to show me, you have the ability to give yourself the same amount of love I can give you from this space always. And it was just such a in-depth love lesson that I still am trying to pick it apart today and understand it more and more. So that was there. Now, anyway, we're done talking, and he proceeds to tell me, you did a good job, now come with me. And I suddenly remember I was like, wait a minute, like something's not here yet. I felt like that girl in Labyrinth where I feel like something's missing, like something's not right. And he shows me these little babies sitting in front of us. And I was like, these babies are adorable. And I looked down and they were in, similar big white flowy gowns, but they kind of shimmered, had like a color to them. The babies had like this light energy. They were so divine and so full of love, like pure, pure love. They had a light coming from them. And there's so much I want to say about them. But I was specifically, there was three, which is interesting, AJ, because I later went in life and had three more babies. So this was really fascinating to me. I'm watching the babies and I zoned in on one and I was like, you're so cute. I just want to pick you up and hold you. But I was thinking this, I didn't say it out loud. And that's when I realized they're reading my mind too. So this little baby looked at me and she goes, how dare you want to pick me up? You can't just pick me up. I'm my own divine, spiritual, wise being just like you. And this is the message. You can't just pick me up. I'm my own being. And I was just so taken aback. I'm literally in a state of shock. I couldn't believe that she could understand my thoughts. And I was literally thinking, I did not say that out loud. How did you read my mind? So it honestly shocked me so much that I don't remember what happened next. All I know is I woke up and it was in this black void space. So now I'm in this black void space and I'm like completely alone and there's nothing there, just the absence of everything. It was almost like my inner self said, I need to be removed from this scene because this baby shocked me so much that I was suddenly removed. And I'm in this black space and it's just pitch black, but it was velvety and loving and calming and completely silent, completely absence of any feeling, any emotion, any thought. And I was just residing in this space, like like I am, just being at one, pure one. And it was almost like the entrance or an exit of some dimensional portal or wormhole, or I have no idea, a portal of some sort. But I'm going and I'm at this uh, point of nothingness, and I'm just residing there. And it was very calming and was very relaxed. And I didn't have any thought for a while. And then I started thinking, okay, I am, I have an I am, like I am something here. What am I? And I forgot about my most recent lifetime at this point. I was just like, okay, so I'm here, and what is this? What am I? And I continued to think that, like it was a very long, progressive journey. And then after a while, I realized, okay, so I'm here. And then I was like, this is kind of boring, like I'm a creator, right? We all have that ability to create within us. So I wanted some light or something, something that was the opposite of blackness. And suddenly little spurts of um, lights would go across my vision, my view. And they were very bright colors. And I remember them having a color. They weren't like white this time, but I was like, there should be a light there, and there would be a light there. Pretty soon I'm giving myself my own like fireworks show for a brief moment. And then I was like, okay, wait. And I stood there for a lot longer, and I was just content with, again, nothing, because I realized I can do that. So now that I can do that, I don't need to do that more. And after another really long time, I'm going to put my other headphone in. Sorry. Um, After another really long time, I felt like I was being shown something. And again, in this space, I don't know if this scene is inserted with a conversation I was having with Jesus or in a later conversation with this other being, but I saw this like earth from above and very far away. And it was like I was being shown it's one organism. The earth was like pulsating its own um, life. And I think it's interesting, AJ, if you go on YouTube, you can listen to the sounds that different planets make. And Earth has its own sound too. And I've listened to it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's actually what I was kind of not hearing, but feeling the vibration of in that scene. So it's really interesting. There's a lot that could be said on that as well. Um, so I so anyway, I'm shown this earth, shown that we're one, shown that it's really important that we treat earth like ourselves, because that is ourself on a higher conscious level. Um, and I'm very passionate about nature and getting kids into nature. And anybody who knows me knows that about me. But I strongly urge everybody to really evaluate these thoughts, because it's a truth. So anyway, I'm in this black void space, and I suddenly begin to think, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Is this, I remember my past life, my most recent life. I was like, I was told about like God and heaven, and, like heaven and hell, and am I in hell? And I started panicking. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I start going through a state of pure panic. And I feel like another divine being got involved at this point and immediately pulled me out and put me into a different experience. I don't, or maybe it was my higher self, maybe it was another being, I don't know. But instantly, or maybe I manifested it, I was in this bright white light again. It was all gone. I'm like, oh, thank God. I do remember I was already in this bright white light, and it was full of love. And I remember, okay, I think I'm dead. I know I'm dead now. I started going through all those stages of death. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where's my baby? I remember that life. I remember what I left behind, and nothing else mattered at this point. So I'm like in this white room, and I started like thinking about it. And I was like, this room, this light feels like I'm in a room. It's not vast and white. I can't travel. I felt restricted. I couldn't move forward and manifest anymore. I was just being confined to a space, and I felt stuck, and I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, laying in, I remember I died laying in a hospital bed. So I don't know if my experience here made me feel like I was laying in a hospital bed, but I didn't feel like I had a body yet. I know I had some sort of embodied element or vibrational, vibrational energy for the essence of me. So laying in this, what it feels like, I'm laying in this bed. It feels like I have a body, and I'm in a white room that is like a version of that white vast space, but I'm being held. And the room is so bright, and I'm like just laying here for a long time. I'm like, what's going on? Am I back in the hospital room? Is there a light on me? Like maybe it's really bright. Where am I? And I started questioning. I was really alone because there was nobody there to communicate and give me comfort and talk to me telepathically. And after a while, I realized there's this being at the foot of my bed. And the more I was there, the more my eyes adjusted to the light a little bit. And I felt like there was more than one being, but I could only see this one. And it was a light being, but it had an essence, almost a very beautiful body. Like my brain made me think maybe that it had a body, but I don't know if it did. And I perceived it as this big, beautiful being with long, flowy blonde hair and bright, brilliant eyes, so just purely blue. And I remember thinking, it looks like an angel, and it had these like this glowing radiance from around the body, and so which outlined the body, but the light seemed to be coming from behind it, which makes me wonder if it had like a pure chakra system, which made it do this. I don't know how to explain that. So I'm staring at this being, and I'm looking at its eyes. I'm like, okay, I know you need to look at my eyes because then I can, find out what's going on here, and why can't I get up, and why am I being held here, and where's this baby I just had? And this being would not look at me at the eyes at first. But I remember seeing that they were blue, and I kept saying, again, telepathically, please look at me in the eyes, and tell me what's going on, and tell me I could have my baby back. And eventually, she looks down at me, and just as she looks at me, I felt her eyes kind of surge my body back, and I literally got pulled back, and um, maybe he or she didn't want to look at me in the eyes because I knew it would be a lot for me to get that much information. This being had a lot of information behind it. And it's not a male, it's not a female, it's this masculine, feminine, non-gender role person. And but as soon as it looked at me, I felt so pulled back. Like I don't know how to explain this. There's so much I could say here. So I'm being pulled back, and I'm instantly being downloaded with everything that's possible to know about the universe. Every question man has ever had was being answered. Encyclopedia books upon encyclopedia books, ancient scrolls, everything. And there's so much that I read ever since coming back. I'm like, I remember this. And I can almost finish writing the book, or finish explaining a concept without even actually reading or understanding the whole thing here in the physical realm, because it all comes back to me. And but I get this download, and it seems like I've been processed. Like I've gotten my download, and now it's time to do the next thing. And I don't know what the next thing could have been, but I was like, wait a minute, what about that baby back there, in the physical realm? What's going to happen to her? And I don't know if I received a download of the probability or future life of that child without me, but I know I did go into a state of panic. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I cannot allow that to happen. I want to go back and bring that baby back here with me. I need to go back and get her. And they were like, it's too late. And they were trying to explain, your body's already gone. There's nothing we can do about it. It's wasted. And I was panicking, like, you have to fix it. Like, send me back. You have to send me back. They're like, but we can't. And I know they can't lie to me because you can't lie there, but I was still being very stubborn. And it proceeded to tell me, um, it's okay. Like, just let it go. You can actually do more for her here, in this heaven space than you ever can for her there in that physical realm, earthly space. And I was panicking. I'm like, you have to send me back. Like, you just have to. Like, she can't have that upbringing. She needs me there. And I promise you, I will bring her back here. And I started begging at this point, even though I'd just gone through all the other stages of grief. And she's like, I just can't. She still wouldn't let me. And I was like, please just, she's like, at some point, she said, honestly, I don't have the authority to send you back. I don't have permission to do it myself. I was like, well, if that's all it is, just get the permission, send me back. And she was like, well, I could, but if I do, like, I just kept interjecting. I'm like, I didn't even want her to finish telling me something. Like, just do it, please. So eventually she looked above my head and I could feel her talking to somebody, like where my halo is. And I don't know if that's where, again, that light being of my own chakra system, maybe there's a light behind me. I can't even imagine, honestly, of what it must have looked like for this person, this being, to be looking back at me. I don't even know what I was to her. I don't know what I look like. And that's interesting when I think about it. But she looked at me. And then when she looked back down at me in the eyes, um, she was like, okay, just remember these key takeaways. And which there's one major key takeaway I'm going to tell you in just a moment that the Jesus guy told me in the garden. But she was like, I'm going to send you back, like I got permission. And this was a very simultaneous delivery of her message. And her eyes looked down, when her eyes looked back down on me, I received that message. And simultaneously, I felt this energy from the floor through the ceiling, because I'm in a laying position there. And I felt my body rise off the bed and drop. And when I fell back in my body, um, the next thing I know is I'm in my coma in the hospital, which is where I was for a while. And I could hear my last rites being said to me and family crying and saying goodbye to me. But what I don't want to forget is she was reminding me of what the Jesus guy in heavens in the garden said. And I call him Jesus, but I think other near-death experiencers have said, Buddha or Jesus for sure, or another spiritual teacher. I just perceived him as some man who loved me. But because I consider myself Christian, I call him Jesus. But I want to throw it out there. But she reminded me that when I was in there, I had asked him, like, so what's the right religion in this world? I was like, is it Buddhism? Is it, Christianity? Like, how do I get, how do people get here? And how do you get here? And this man just laughed. He was so full of humor the whole time. He's laughing and just enjoying our conversation, and very lighthearted, very loving, and just fun. And everything was funny to him. But he was laughing. He was like, you silly girl, all paths lead to the same place, here in this heaven space. That's where all the paths lead here. And I'm always here. And I thought that was really fun, So like, so before I finish my story, I just wanted to add that I think it's interesting that we all go to the same place. Um, every religion is correct. We're all, as long as it's about love, for sure. We might have, one religious leader in one religion and another in another. But at the end of the day, if you're on the path of love and you get to this light, then you're going to experience love. And that's a power we carry within ourselves, is to set up the expectation of what we're going to have for this next part of our life journey. Once we die, we create that reality for ourselves. And we're creating it right now, you and me, AJ, right now. Like, whatever you're experiencing and believing about your religion, and if there's going to be hell, may or may not dictate if that's going to happen. So I wanted to add that there because if people really believe in heaven and hell and they're scared they're going to go to hell, they might actually have a manifestation of a hellish experience while they're in that black void space. They may not have that loving content feeling there. So I want to, if I had any takeaway from this, if I was the listener, I want to know I need to focus on how I perceive love in this lifetime and focus only on the love. Don't worry about anything else.
Okay, so you also mentioned that when you were in this black space, you manifested light. And do you think that in heaven or in the other side, we manifest or we co-create what we want, or how does
Yeah,
it work? Were you giving any explanation or instructions regarding this?
that's a great question. I have never had like anybody ask me if I got instructions. I think I just instinctively knew that I was my own creator, my own designer. Everything that I was experiencing, I was the one in control of it. And when I did have a conversation with that guy in the garden, he did tell me, you can create, you're creating your, how do I get this backwards? You're creating your experience on earth as you do in heaven. And he was trying to tell me the opposite of what we hear as humans here on earth.
So he did talk about that co-creation or manifest,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He was saying, you create your reality. And I just understood it to be that way because I was creating my reality there. And then he was all, there was around the same time he was showing me the babies. And I was like, those are really cute babies. And I think he was trying to tell me, um, those are your future babies, but don't worry, you'll have another chance with them. And I don't know if he meant you're going to be reincarnated in a future body, or I already know that you're going to go back to that body and these will be your future three babies.
How long did it take you to understand what had happened and integrate this experience?
That's a great question. um, Within 3 months, for sure. And keep in mind, the first 8 to 10 weeks I was in the hospital. So I was there for a long time. And by the time I went home, I had a newborn baby to take care of nearly by myself. So it was about a month of being home and in the midnight hour where you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? And let me back up. Right when I came back to life, this is really cool. I absolutely knew I went somewhere else. I just didn't remember all the different pieces and I wasn't able to start digesting what order they came in, but I knew I died and came back and I was with this beautiful bright white light. So right when I came back, I was telling a couple of the doctors, the pulmonologist, anesthesiologist, and the primary care physician, the OB, what had happened. And all of them, independent of one another, was like, okay, I believe you, but don't tell anyone else. Quit talking about it. And they kept trying to shut me down because it was in the age where you would be considered needing to go to a psych hospital if you kept talking that way. But each one of them said, yes, I absolutely believe you, but please stop saying this, quit talking about it. And keep in mind, I'm having to write it down. So I'm writing down because I couldn't talk. Not only had a ventilator in my throat, but even after I was discharged, I had no voice for almost a year, and I still lose it easily to this day, as you can hear. Um, so I'm writing these notes down, and they're like turning the pages and making me start on a fresh page so the nurse that comes in doesn't see the notes. And I have all of those notes. Interestingly enough, I'm in the publication phase, and I have a copy of all these hospital notes in the book, along with statements from each of the doctors, the pulmonologist, the anesthesiologist, and the primary, about their perspectives of the entire experience. And one of them, this is a fun story if I have the time to tell you. One of them, I had said, "Oh, I met you." And when he came in, I wrote it down because I had my notes, which I didn't find until about 4 years ago during COVID. But I wrote, I know who you are. I saw you. And he was like, "You've never met me before. Um, I cared for you while you were dead and while you were in a coma before you ever woke up." I was like, I saw you, like I was describing. you were in the elevator. He's like, you couldn't have seen that. I was like, I saw you. You're the one that was bald. You have the bald spot on the top of your head. And I was like, I continued watching you when you were trying to revive me, and I felt what you were feeling. And a part of him was like weeping, and he was trying to keep himself together. And he's like, I don't know how you know that. Like, no one knows about my bald spot for one. And then then he proceeds to tell me and everybody there, she's the one who gave me this bald spot because I called him out on it. And he's like, I actually, um, he was a pulmonologist and he wasn't in the C-section room. He was in a different part of the hospital. So when he got called over to the elevator to come over and help quickly, um, he didn't have time to put a gown and hat on. So that's why I thought it was so interesting he didn't have a hat on. And I turned him into a believer. And he continued to call me for at least 10 years to check in on me. And I've had several like in-person meetings with him where he signed off that this is definitely what happened for different purposes in my life. And then the anesthesiologist had a similar experience where he's like, there's no way you could have known that or that. And I said, don't don't tell me I'm lying. I'm definitely telling you the truth. Um, but all three of those doctors continued to support me, and they were probably one of the only ones for the first few years, especially, who gave me any validation and made me feel like um, you are correct, and there's no reason why you should allow your self-esteem to weaken, because so many people were telling me it must have been morphine or, lack of oxygen and all these things. I was like, I was gone for a while. I don't know what you're saying, like they had no time to give me morphine. They had no time to give me any medicine except for the medicine that made me feel my C-section. So I wish I had something, but nope, that's not the case. Um, the doctor who discovered or identified that I was having an amniotic fluid embolism later went on to become the Midwest first high risk OBGYN doctor. And when I later had children, much later, I had two more children. I'm sorry, I've had three total more children, but I had two further later. Um, I called him on his cell phone because I always had a cell phone. And I told him, hey, I'm pregnant and I don't want to be in that situation again with not having a doctor to go to, which is what happened with my second daughter. I'm like, do you have any recommendations? He's like, I actually have become the first high risk OBGYN clinician in the area because of you. If you like to come in, just call the front desk. You don't need a referral. You're approved. Trust me. I'm going to love taking care of you. And then every time I went in for an appointment, he would always parade me around and explain to the nurses, this is the girl I told you about. And it's just a beautiful story to add in there. Is
So how did people take it when you told them your story? Did they believe you or you understood? Did you even
uh,
know about near-death experiences at the time?
no, I didn't have a word for it. So when I first started explaining it, I actually have always said my afterlife experience. And I always said, in my afterlife experience, I experienced XYZ, and I would explain that. Um, People just gradually either got tired of listening to me and just started acknowledging that it's my truth, or and I'm talking about my close friends and family, or they've been respectful enough to at least accept that I've had an afterlife experience or near death experience. But the majority of the people have always started with an objection, like, I don't believe this, there's no way. And I'm like, it is the truth, like I had my mom got convinced when I told her what happened. I confronted my sister and my grandpa independently of one another, and each one of them said the exact same thing. I shared my story first, like, you actually are remembering it better than I did, and that is exactly what happened. Now that you're saying that, is exactly what happened, because I was explaining everything in the room and to the detail, everything. And I explained what they were feeling. And my sister actually got so upset. I feel bad saying this on air. She got so upset that she essentially kicked me out of her house and refused to talk to me for a few years because she thought she was going to lose her job if my story ever got out, because I was friends with a lot of her friends that worked there. So I moved like an hour and a half away from her, where we didn't talk at all for 3 or 4 years. And then when she was ready to leave her job, she called me and she was saying, I'm going to come to Omaha and I have so much to tell you. I've been avoiding you all these years because of that. I was worried I'd lose my job and I feel like my family comes first. And she moved within a block away. And our kids grew up together a block away from each other.
Okay, we met in IANDS meeting
Yeah,
recently, in a facilitators meeting. And
yeah.
you said that you had been with IANDS for over a decade. So how did you get around to joining IANDS, and how,
That's
did they help you? Did that help you at all?
Yeah, thank you. AJ, there's not enough nice things that we can say about IANDS, and I'm not saying that because both of you and I are there. So it was during, I went on to pursue law school, and it was during that experience of being in school, I needed to write some good papers. I actually got first in the state several times for speaking about this experience to college students across Nebraska, and that was rewarding. Um, I got first place and was told you need to go national. I'm like, I can't, it's Christmas break. But long story short, it was during that time period where I'm doing a lot of work, reflecting and creating, putting the story in writing, that I stumbled across IANDS on like Google or something. I'm like, oh, there's other people that have had these experiences. This is amazing. I'm not alone in my journey. And it's not common to find somebody who's either had an experience or willing to share it back. So I contacted IANDS about 2008, 2009. I was very involved with them off and on for about 2, 3 years. And then right before COVID, I had actually asked if I could take over the group leader's role because he was very sick with some things. And he gifted me the opportunity to become a facilitator. And this is again during COVID. So because of COVID, we got that pushed back, and now we offer virtual opportunities for group sharing sessions. And I do them. You can go on to iands.com and then just click all groups. I'm the one that facilitates the Omaha, Nebraska, and the McAllen, Texas location. And but there's group facilitators all over the country. And there's also really cool groups that you could join that are more specific to your interest or to your own experience. So if you have like a religious experience, there's a religious group. If you have an alien experience, which I kind of tied to that room where I felt like it was artificial light speaking to an interdimensional being, I feel like people go there and maybe they go straight there. That's the only part they remember. And that's the group, the sharing group that resonates most with them. And there's groups in there for everything, or just spiritual transformative experiences. It doesn't have to be near death. There's support groups for reintegrating into society, which is a part of the book I have coming out. I wish I knew actually they had a group that aligned with that before I wrote my book. And they have other books on grieving, or if you're a family member of somebody who's going to experience death on the horizon, that you can go. But anyway, it's a great resource. I found thousands and thousands of near death experiences in there who, and again, let me just say this, AJ, I wrote my book like 2008, 2009, but I'm just getting it published and I didn't change anything about that story. And I didn't find the words from the hospital until COVID, when I was actually getting ready to move, and I had to like figure out if I'm gonna throw this box away. And I found these notes. I thought that was just a gem, and everything in there aligned perfectly with the story that I share the same every single time.
How about your journey as a hypnotherapist? I understand that you
Uh,
are now working as a hypnotherapist, and you have worked with different near-death experiencers, among others, right? Can you
yeah,
tell me a bit
actually,
about that?
yeah, it's so exciting and fun. Um, I actually started my practice to help people on their spiritual life goals and just help them align or tune into their higher dimensional self so they knew exactly what their spiritual purpose is for this life. And those kind of sessions, to me, I can operate in my sleep. Um, then more people started coming to me when they realized I had a near death experience, and they're like, I had one too, or I had a I had a spiritual transformative experience, maybe even do an ayahuasca or something, and I'm interested in how that ties into my spiritual journey today. Can you take me back there and help me answer any unanswered questions that I have for myself in that experience? I'm like, absolutely. So to me, it's really easy to get you into that type of regression and get you to the space of life between lives. And because I feel like I've really honestly experienced a little bit of each, that I can really resonate with exactly how they're feeling while they're in this experience and in that realm. And it's really empowering and beautiful that I can help and allow myself to be a facilitator, to help people get back to these experiences and really pick them apart. And I honestly, if there's anybody watching this that can do that for me, I would love to exchange services. But I haven't been able to go back. I've never had a hypnotherapist actually even attempt to give me a therapy session of myself to explore these two realms. But I have had a past life regression session where I just jumped right through it. I just feel like a part of my soul isn't ready to revisit it because I want to keep it divine and innocent and pure to my own memory.
Well, Crystal, this has been amazing. How can people contact you if they're interested?
Oh, thank you. They can go to crystalfaith.net and they can actually, I encourage you to go there if you want a copy of my book. I'll send you a free copy of my book, just for AJ's viewers. If you want to go down your own spiritual path and understand yourself, I do have in there a free consultation or a free appointment. We can talk about whether this makes sense for you. And then we're also releasing a subscription box coming up here in 2 months. And it's going to be curated with things that are aligned to your spiritual goals. So if AJ, if your goal right now, your self-esteem goal is to might be I am loved, then we're going to package this spiritual subscription box with prescription therapy kind of things, with crystals and items in there that you need to help you feel loved. And might have sage, and I'm trying to touch up on all the 5 senses so that you can have a fully immersive experience on your journey. And then you'll also get affirmations, meditations, and self-hypnosis sessions that go along with your affirmation goal. And then you can, if you'd like, you can always sign up for another one down the road in 3 months to realign with your new goals.
Okay, so I'm going to include your website URL. And if anybody wants to write to you, do you have an email or a Facebook?
Yeah, it's all on there. Yep. It's Crystal
Okay.
Faith everywhere. Yeah, it's all integrated on the website.
Well, thanks a lot. This was amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm going to have you back for more details.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I know that you have a lot more details to share.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot.
Of course, AJ, thank you.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.